Okay, threat actors break in, they steal credentials elsewhere. But what about when they make landfall and they want to steal credentials here? And so, Anton, what are we looking at here, man?
Yeah, so this is your standard kind of flavor of credential access. This is what anyone who's ever taken like any kind of pen testing course, your pen test 101s, will be familiar with credential dumping from the registry and Mimikatz, right? We see on the right-hand side, the open source developer has signature that we all kind of know and love from Mimikatz. So we see this quite a bit. And actually, if you look at the command line for those Mimikatz execution, which I hope it's visible on the slides, you can kind of see that they're not just grabbing the LSAS credentials, right? They're using every almost every feature that Mimikatz has, right? So like, do we want credentials? Yes, tick, yes, they definitely do. What's also interesting here is that this is from the same case. So they're using the reg dump from Mimikatz, and they're also using another tool to dump credentials via the registry. So they're really uh, hungry, as I mentioned earlier, for credentials. They really want these credentials, even to the point of using two different tools to get literally the same credentials from the registry, which I found interesting. Same with the command line here for Mimikatz. Usually you see the LSA dump logon passwords, command line parameter. You might see some vault ones, but why they want the boot key for this particular case, I don't know. It could be a playbook, it could be something else, but definitely interesting. Definitely something, again, that could be labeled as boring credential access, but definitely not, especially if you think about it from the perspective of especially local administrator credentials. These are dangerous, very, very dangerous, especially if they're actually shared across your network. What we often hear is, okay, yeah, the threat actor got credentials from this endpoint, but this particular endpoint is used rarely, doesn't have any sensitive information on it, and that might be the case. However, the local administrator credentials on that endpoint, if they work everywhere else in your environment, and if those local admin creds work for your domain controller as well, and your file servers, then that endpoint compromise leads almost directly to the compromise of your potentially your entire network. So credential access, yeah, boring for sure, but heavily, heavily impactful, especially if you don't have a lot of controls in place for things like lateral movement and segregation that we talked about earlier.